Crazy Classics is about rediscovering older horror movies that have been long forgotten by a modern audience. But the catch is that the movie has to be crazy. And what I mean by that is it needs to have wild scenarios or a wild plot or some outrageous special effects. And that's exactly what we've got here with this 1981 Indonesian crazy classic called Sundel Bolong, which is the name of a female ghost who used to be a prostitute but is now out for revenge. And who better than Suzzanna, Indonesia's favourite scream queen and the star of some of the most iconic Indonesian horror movies, including The Queen of Black Magic, which was made in the same year as this movie. We've also got The Snake Queen and its many, many sequels. And of course, who could forget Santet, as well as many, many other legendary titles. Suzzanna plays the role of Alissa, an ex-prostitute who gets married to Hendarto, a sailor who appears to be extremely wealthy. Yes, this is the Pretty Woman plot before that movie was ever a thing. Alissa's husband is called away for a 9-month tour of duty, and she decides she needs to keep her mind busy, so she creates some embroidery patterns that she hopes to sell to a dressmaker. Unfortunately, this dressmaker is also in cahoots with her ex-madam, who desperately wants her best worker back. The dressmaker, named Rudy, offers her a modelling job, but she refuses. On her way home, the road is blocked and 4 men kidnap her and take her to an abandoned factory. At the factory, they're met by Rudy and the madam, and Rudy has his way with Alissa. Once he is finished, the other 4 men take their turns with her. While waiting for the courts to deliver justice against her perpetrators, Alissa discovers she's pregnant. A local doctor refuses to perform the abortion, so she does the worst thing imaginable. She aborts the baby herself after having one of the creepiest and nightmarishly scary nightmares you'll ever see about parenthood. But the resulting blood loss takes her life. When her husband returns home, he is visited by Alissa's twin sister Sheena, who apparently died at the age of 10. But here she is, standing in front of him. And now Alissa's revenge begins. Reborn as the Sundel Bolong, she shapeshifts into various different women and slowly takes her revenge on every person responsible for her unwanted pregnancy and subsequent death. This is very reminiscent of I Spit on Your Grave, except without the excessive nudity and intercourse. Alissa's husband realizes that Sheena is actually an apparition created by Alissa, and after making love to her, let that sink in, made love to a ghost. He teams up with the local police force to try and stop his dead wife from killing Rudy and the madam. Now, this is such an insane movie that's made even more insane by some of the most wildest practical visual effects in the latter half of the movie that will really have you missing the good old days of horror filmmaking when creativity used to rule the roost. The end scenario in this film, it really needs to be seen to be believed. I mean, there are some crazy effects that remind me of the time when I was making a short movie in high school where I needed one of the characters in the scene to disappear. So I would have him walk to a particular point, then I would stop the camera, get him to run off the set, and then press unpause on the camera to continue filming. I mean, the same technique is used here in various scenes. Then there's also the awesome use of partial exposure on the negative to imply that Alissa is a transparent ghost. That's something I actually really love. But when the wagon gets smashed up at the warehouse, I mean, that's a scene you need to see with your own eyes to really believe. I mean, this poor car gets absolutely trashed, yet it's still able to just drive away. And then we get the plastic looking skeletons when Alissa is trying to scare her victims. Now I get it. I mean, this is the early 80s and these effects would have been cutting edge and perhaps even very creepy. But in this modern CGI time frame that we're in now, it looks just campy. And that's okay. I'm okay with campy looking movies, but it's good campy, you know. And on a side note, the best Indonesian horror movie ever made, which came out a year after this one, called Pengabdi Setan, it uses a very similar technique. So, the 80s was certainly a campy time for horror cinema, both in Western cinema and in Asian cinema from the looks of it. But it's not just the effects that make this a crazy movie. I mean, it's the idea of a ghost haunting a bunch of country hicks that also really contributes to that idea. When Alyssa convinces one of the men to follow her into this white brick room, and then she blocks him into it. I mean, I'm just sitting there screaming at the camera, telling the guy, don't go in there. Remember that scene from Scary Movie where she's in the cinema and she's yelling out to the girl on the cinema, don't go in there? That's exactly how I was. It's a really good example of a man thinking with his junior brain and not his senior brain. Now, Suzzanna is a charm in Indonesian cinema. She pulls off this role really, really well. But one can't help but wonder if she truly enjoys her time on set and enjoys making these movies. But then again, I get the same feeling when I watch Ahi Sheena in Tokyo Gore Police. It's just this idea of being completely stoic. It's a very good skill to have if you can do it as an actor. And when you pull it off, it borderlines on a very quality performance over something that looks very amateurish. And, one thing Suzzanna I don't think can ever be accused of, and that is of being an amateur. So what about the film itself, I hear you asking? Is it something that you should watch? Well, it is a refreshing change from a lot of the crap that's coming out from Indonesia right now, whose filmmakers have decided to just bombard the audience with these overtly religious horror movies that just kind of a bit shit, to be honest. This movie, I should say, keeps the religion to a couple of very short scenes later on in the movie. It doesn't kind of take over any part of the movie. They're not constantly praying or saying, thank God for this and that. And that's what makes this, enjoyable. But a lot of Indonesian cinema was kind of like that in the 80s. But it's also a very rough looking movie. And that's a clear hallmark of, late 70s, early 80s horror cinema from all over the world. And Indonesia's no exception with that. Now, that roughness or grittiness or rawness, depending on whatever you want to call it, it adds to the overall atmosphere of the film. Now, it's certainly aged the film, but after watching it, I would certainly take this movie over the countless dozens of other horror pulp that's just pumped out of Indonesia lately. That overtly religious, shot on digital, full of CGI, overproduced crap. I mean, you know what it is as soon as you see it, and you just kind of think, I know I'm not going to enjoy this. You don't get that vibe here with SUNDEL BOLONG. And on that note, this is definitely a movie that I would watch for the absolute slice of history that this film is, featuring an absolute darling and superstar, and reminding the audience that there were much better days in horror cinema, and that was when creativity and problem solving were an important skill to have when making a film. You can certainly see a lot of that in play in this film. You can see the production teams just thinking, how are we going to pull off this effect? They've gone ahead and they've done it. Yes, by today's standards, it doesn't look that fantastic or that impressive, but cast your mind back 45 years ago, this was some kind of cutting edge stuff. Anyway, I am the Artie Dance. You are watching SHOCKMANIA. Thank you so much for tuning into Crazy Classics. If you know of a crazy classic from anywhere around the world, from any kind of time frame, although let's make it pre-2000s, I would say, I would love to hear about it in the comment section below. Otherwise, like, subscribe, all that other jazz. I will catch you next time. I hope so.